Today's topic is we need each other to evolve, or why we need each other to evolve. Hey, Bob, thanks. You're very welcome. Happy to help. And it's going to be five benefits of being part of a practice community. 5 benefits of being in a practice community. Why we need each other to evolve. 5 benefits of being in a practice community. What's a practice community? A dojo is a practice community. A yoga studio is a practice community. A church is a practice community. Sports teams, in their own way, are for sure practice communities. If we go a little bit further into spirituality, sanghas are practice communities, and therapy is a practice community. That's usually kind of one-on-one. For example, Alcoholics Anonymous, it's a group thing. That's totally a practice community. These are communities that we choose to join in order to be supported in our practice, or to lead or guided, or to be with other people who want to kind of develop or advance or learn, whatever it is. And practice community in this sense it really is meaning a group of practitioners who are walking a higher path of practice. So you have these higher, let's say, spiritual principles, or these higher humanistic principles, these higher universal principles, and the little lower parts of myself that doesn't meet up to those chooses to kind of walk that higher path. And as I walk that higher path, wow, it's going to be tough, because there's some gates on that path, and some of those gates are very narrow, and my ego can't go through those gates. So if I'm going to try to make progress, I've got to somehow work with the ego to slip through that gate. Annetta rolling. Hi, Annetta. Nice to see you, as always. This looks funny here on this screen because your face is upside down. So cool. And Idan. Oh, hi, Idan. Mashlumcha. How are you doing today? Anyway, so 5 benefits of being part of a practice community. Now, I'll kind of go over this. I'm going to go over my list here. After I give this short teaching on 5 benefits of being in a practice community, I want to kind of talk a little bit about the evolution of response, kind of show you a little bit what it's about, and I'm going to answer all of your questions. So if you have any questions regarding the course, a few people on the call, or this isn't a call, a few people I see are on this Facebook Live have already joined the course, and some are considering it, I know. So any questions that you have, you can even start typing them in. I will get to them later. But first, let me kind of finish the 5 benefits of being part of a practice community. I'll say all 5. First benefit is challenge. Second benefit is support. Third benefit is learning from others. And the 4th benefit is helping or teaching or guiding others. And that one gets flipped. And the 5th benefit is that we need each other. Quite literally, we need each other. I need you, you need me, sorry to say, to evolve. Evolution doesn't happen by itself. It happens in community. So we need each other to evolve. And these are the 5 benefits. All 5 of these things you get from a practice community. So in this sense, remember, I'm talking about a practice community that's kind of a higher path. What happens when you've got a community that's committed to a higher path of practice is that group of people, maybe there's a guide, maybe there's a group of guys, maybe it's just a support group, whatever, they choose to put awareness in the center of their meeting. And when you put awareness in the center of your gathering, everything organizes around awareness. Think of a business, and they put profit is in the middle of that purpose. And purpose is... Hi, Don. Nice to see you. What does he say? Very good, Sensei. Thank you. Nice to see you as always. Yes. So just for example, business, we wouldn't call it a practice community, although business can be practice, that's for sure. But profit's in the middle. Let's just think of the old mind. Business for profit is in the middle. And everything organizes around profit. They don't care if you're happy or sad or fast or strong or enlightened or, morally good or whatever. They don't care as long as profit's happening, because it's all organized around profit. When awareness is in the center, everything organizes around awareness. And the beautiful thing is that development only happens when we're present with awareness in the present moment. Development can only unfold. Our own internal development can only happen when we are mindful in the present moment. So when we put mindfulness or awareness or commitment or higher purpose or higher intention in the center of our meeting, that is actually creates, and we all agree, we all kind of hold that, that creates the conditions for us to evolve, for us to grow. We have to. There's no choice about it. When that happens, these 5 things that I'm speaking about, and they're not a exhaustive list, surely there's more things, but I just chose 5. These 5 things appear, and I'll speak about them kind of one by one. The first one is challenge. And everybody knows that challenge, whenever you take on a developmental practice, you will face challenges. The limited part of the self that is desiring for its potential will have to go out of its comfort zone, and that can be some scary stuff. There's lions, there's tigers, there's bears, oh my, that can chase you, that can not chase, attack you or challenge you or confront you as soon as you step out of the comfort zone. And even more so in a community. There's kind of a story of an old story from the meditation community circles there was a reporter, a journalist, was writing about the life of monks here in the West. And this reporter was going around the different monasteries, Christian monasteries, and doing interviews with some of the monks. And he got to one of the most holy of the brothers. And that reporter asked the question, what is the one single biggest challenge between you and your communion with God? This is spiritual awakening, your communion with God. What is your biggest challenge? Without hesitation, the monk said, the other monks. And if you've ever practiced in an intensive spiritual group, for example, I did retreats, several retreats, and I've lived in monasteries for 3 years of my life. And I was also uchideshi in a dojo for 1 year, and there were a lot of challenges, but by far, the challenges of the other people. You could say the other monks or the other yogis or the other deshi. I was a young man when I was uchideshi, and wow, the interpersonal relations there were not the. I mean, we were all kind of brothers on the path, so that was cool, and sisters, brothers and sisters on the path, so that was really cool. But sometimes, we were kids. We're not really, mature people, and some of the relationships were, not. There were good times and there were bad times. Let me put it that way. In the monastery, it was great because everybody's really putting awareness in the center of mindfulness. That's what it's all about. And yet, and you're silent. You're in practicing noble silence, but passive-aggressive energy is flying all over the place. And for sure, any challenges that you have inside get projected onto the others. And any challenges they have, can get projected onto you. And then, all kinds of stuff is happening. So being in a community will automatically challenge you. And that's not a bad thing. Even though it sounds like I'm saying, oh my God, you have to face these difficulties with other people. Yes, that's part of our practice. But the spiritual teacher Gurdjieff has this beautiful story that he was a mystic from the East, somewhere in Azerbaijan or someplace, and he moved into Europe and he started teaching awakening practices, and he had a community outside of in France, outside of Paris, and they were all doing Gurdjieff work. They were all like, spiritual, let's be mindful, let's be awareness, and intense, serious practice. They also worked a lot, so their work was a big part of, work, keeping themselves busy was a big part of their spiritual practice. And Gurdjieff, there was one day a Russian guy showed up who wasn't a spiritual practitioner, but he was an old friend of Gurdjieff, and Gurdjieff let him stay. But can you imagine, everybody in the community was really kind of doing spiritual practice. And this guy, just an ordinary guy, maybe he was even a little bit of a rough guy, was staying in the community, and he was just like, he didn't give a shit. He would open up cans of sardines and leave them sitting on the counter. He didn't do any work. He drank. He was kind of lazy and rude, and everybody was getting pissed off. But they knew they couldn't say anything to him because he was the friend of Gurdjieff. So how can they, challenge this guy? Because he's not part of the spiritual community, and second, he's the teacher's friend. So Gurdjieff went to Paris for a week or two, and the students there, they started to play practical jokes. They started to do tricks to this guy to piss him off so he would leave. And finally, he did get pissed off, and he just left. And they said, wow, great, we got rid of him. Now we can go back to our spiritual practice. when Gurdjieff heard about it, he went all the way to Paris to look for this guy. He found him. He paid him money, like a salary, to go back and live in the spiritual community, and to continue to live there as he did before. And all the students were like, "What are you doing? How could you invite this guy back, and why are you paying him?" And Gurdjieff said, "You guys completely missed the point. This guy is like the yeast in bread. And you guys completely failed. The yeast is what makes the bread grow." So here was this difficult character that they were having to kind of confront. And with confronting him, they were basically confronting themselves. And this happens in any type of community. If you think of, just think in the dojo. Dojos are usually socially nice, we're all friends. But then you start training, there's always all kinds of little stuff going on. And since we are in the dojo, we have etiquette, the reiki, and we have, the ways of being and, politeness. And it is a martial art, so we have to be serious, and you have to be careful, and you have to be safe, and you have to kind of keep it real. All kinds of things come out, and, that's a beautifully challenging experience. And one thing about our community, our Aikido dojo, our meditation group, or whatever, AA group, it's like a mirror. It's like you have a group of individuals who are mirrors that are constantly reflecting to you where you're at. And you are a mirror that is constantly reflecting to them where you're at. So challenge, a teacher challenging me, or me challenging myself, or my friend challenging me, that's one thing. But being in a community is beautifully challenging. But if it was only challenging, that would kind of be tough. Maybe too tough, not developmentally balanced. It'd be a little bit out of balance. So that brings us to the second benefit of practicing in a community, and that's the benefit of support. It's the opposite. On one, this is two sides of the same coin. On one side, there's challenge, and on the other side, there's support. In Buddhism, they talk about, the Buddha was awakened fully with compassion and wisdom. And wisdom is the challenge. Wisdom sees the truth and puts the truth in front of you like a mirror. Compassion supports you for who you are, where you are, however you are, and beautifully holds you from the heart space. Challenge is from the mind. It's like, you see that mountain? Go climb. Support is from the heart. What? You're there? Let me hold you, and let me support you. And in that sense, a spiritual community, or a practice community, I should say. Practice community should be, if it's balanced, a beautiful support for our practice. And everybody is going through challenges. And one of the things that's really supportive is that you see everybody else going through difficulties and going through challenges and having bad days and having good days. And you see them over time developing, moving up to another level, developing and getting something and starting to change. And wow, there's nothing more supportive than being in a community of other people where they are actually, you can see them, and then they actually support you when you're going through your challenges. They are right there along with you, kind of like that, like brothers and sisters in arms. They're supporting you. They've got your back. And when you're down, they will lift you up. When you're right, not right, wrong, right, but when you have an insight, or when you get something and when you change, they're right there to say, "Yes, baby, that's it. Great, fantastic. Let's do more of that. That inspires me." And there's just so much support that we get from being in a community. And the martial arts do tend to be more on the challenge side, traditional kind of martial arts, stoic and masculine, and never surrender and have no fear. These are all kind of challenge sides. But to be quite fair, it needs to be balanced with support. Most of my teachers, my male teachers that I chose, were very challenge type teachers. Until I kind of matured and grew up, then I started then I started gravitating to choosing more support type teachers, because I was out of balance in myself. And, you might just kind of reflecting it for a moment, you might want to reflect, which kind of learner are you? Are you the type of learner who learns through challenge? We all learn through both. But is your preference to challenge? You need a little bit of a push to go? Or is your preference with support? You need somebody there that's going to kind of affirm who you are. Where you are is great, and that's who you are. As soon as that's affirmed, it's like a flower. It starts to bloom. You know? And because we all have types, we're one type or the other. And I'm a challenge type, but I know that I need support, and I also need to give support. If you're support type, occasionally going for challenge. These are opposites, the first two benefits. But if you're in a good spiritual community, I keep saying spiritual community, sorry, a good practice community, which includes spiritual communities, will have a beautiful balance between challenge and support. The third benefit to be gained from being part of a practice community is that you will learn from others. Like today, after this little teaching, I'm going to answer any questions that people have about the Evolution of Response course, or anything else, doesn't matter. But when you listen to other people's questions, it's like, it stimulates. First, it's interesting. Wow, that's, everybody has questions that are kind of general that we all have. But there could be unique questions for a man or a woman. You think, wow, that's so interesting that they're going through that. It kind of stimulates, and I learn from their process. Other times, people will ask a question. I think, oh man, I had that same question, a year ago, 10 years ago, or when I was a beginner, I had that same question. I could so relate to it, and you learn more about yourself. Other people are going to ask questions that are above your ceiling. I can get all this, but somebody's asking a question here, or maybe even up here, and I'm like, what is that? And I'm like hanging on every word, trying to get it, but I just, the gap's not closing because I'm maybe a few years away before I can understand that. But hearing that, it kind of lays out the territory, because in one sense, your consciousness, Bob, and Annetta, your consciousness, and Idan, your consciousness, and Michael, and whoever else is on this call, all of us have kind of a cosmic address with our conscious. And those cosmic addresses, in a way, it's kind of like a map. So as we start to kind of get, oh, wow, what, Donald Trump is like that? He thinks that way? Wow, that's kind of a location in the cosmos. And then, the Dalai Lama thinks like that, and that's another location in the cosmos. And this person and that person, we start to kind of map things out, and we start to learn, okay, there's area here to navigate. We're not all the same. And being in a spiritual community, again, I said spiritual. I guess for me, as practice community is a spiritual thing. But being in a practice community beautifully starts to map out the territory, and you can learn from being around others that are behind you on the path, kind of, so to speak, others that are ahead of you on the path, and others that are going through the same struggles or having the same insights that you're having on the path. So you learn from others. Benefit number 3. Benefit number 4 of being part of a practice community is that you help others. You get the chance, you get the opportunity to help others. My two big practices are Aikido and Buddhism, so I refer a lot to Buddhism, but I do it hopefully in a post-Buddhist way, because I think every spiritual tradition, every religion, every basic learning tradition kind of has this idea that I'm going to talk about now. But in Buddhism, there's the idea of the bodhisattva, and the bodhisattva is somebody who awakens for the sake of all beings. And early forms of Buddhism, you would wake up until you're enlightened, and then you meditate until you die, and then you leave the planet, and you're never reborn again. You just want to get out of here because this is all samsara. But then a further form of Buddhism, the Mahayana revolution, they basically start saying, no, yes, get awakened, but don't go. Don't finish your karma and go. Be reborn as an awakened being, awakened consciousness, and start to help others. Because my God, we need to help each other with this stuff. We don't just learn from each other and then get out, get the benefit, become an Aikido master and then go away. No, we have to turn around. It's very, very important that we have to turn around and give back to others. My teacher, there's a big question of, should I focus on myself when I'm practicing, or should I focus on others? And like, for example, in Vipassana, it's not necessarily Aikido, but in Vipassana, the meditation practice, my teacher used to say it's like two people are walking along and they fall in quicksand. Quicksand is that, I'm not sure if you know the word in English, but it's like this soft earth, it's sandy, and you step on it and you start to sink slowly. And you can die, you can disappear. And these two people fell into this quicksand, and one of them said, hey, let's help each other get out of here. But another guy said, no, I'm going to help myself. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be concerned with you. I'm going to help myself get out of here. Because once I get out of this quicksand, and only when I am free from this quicksand, really free, only then can I turn around and help you. So there is a certain point where we have to be concerned about ourselves and take care of ourselves. But once we get a little bit of awakening, a little bit of development, a little bit of maturity, a little bit of growth, it's super important that we turn around, we help others, we help them get out. And who knows better the quicksand than somebody that's been in it, faced that, in a way, mortality and escaped and got out. And then you see others, you can actually escape. And that's what happened to the Buddha on the night of his awakening. He 7 years of intense spiritual practice, 35 years old, I think he was. Went through intense life. I won't go into the whole story. It's pretty mythic and it's an awesome story. But he awakened and he didn't have to do anything. He could have just sat there. And, the rest of his life, been awakened, never opened his mouth, never taught, and it would have been fine. He didn't need me. He didn't need to prove anything. But then part of his awakening was that his mind's eye or his cosmic eye or whatever, he was able to see the world, all of humanity in his mind's eye, and see all of the suffering in the world. And he realized with Maha Karuna, with great compassion, that he could help to heal the suffering in the world. And that's what motivated him to get up and teach. And he traveled far. He walked for another, I think, 7 days, and he met a group. And again, it's a long story. But that's how he started teaching. And here it is 2,500 years later, and those teachings are still benefiting mankind. So that's like an awesome, epic, mythic story that we can use as a metaphor. It's like, wow, okay, I learned something, and I get so much benefit, so much freedom, so much goodwill comes from that. And I'm so grateful. And then I see that somebody else is suffering in a similar fashion. I'm just naturally compelled. Love compels me to help them. And this is the need, not the need. There is a need, but it's not an egoic need. It's a kind of a higher need to help others. And when you realize part of our awakening, and if it's just about Aikido, part of our maturing in Aikido, we get good in Aikido. Not everybody turns around and teaches Aikido. Not everybody can. Their life is busy or whatever. But if you do, or if your teacher asks you to, or if you help with classes, or if you start teaching, you very quickly realize that a whole other process is beginning. When you're actually helping others with what you know, what you know begins to manifest in a new way. It becomes more empowered. It becomes more grounded in who you are. It becomes more clarified in who you are. And who you are continues to grow from that. So helping others, of course, is beneficial to all beings. But it's also beneficial to our further development. And this is the fourth benefit that you get from being part of a practice community. And the fifth, the last but not least, and again, this is not a complete list. I was sitting having a coffee this morning. I'm thinking, what should I do? And I came up with these 5 things. And the fifth one is that, let's face it, people, we need each other to evolve. We need each other to evolve. I can go off on my own personal enlightenment project and develop. Maybe, who knows, maybe I become enlightened even. I don't know. I can develop, but I don't necessarily evolve. And what I mean by evolution, I mean, that if you look at all of the troubles in the world, let's say social troubles, because it's social troubles, because this is a we. I'm talking about we. We need each other to evolve. They're just fractures in society, fractures in communities, fractures in cultures, gaps in political beliefs. My God, I'm here in Israel, the wonderful President Trump moved the American embassy to Jerusalem, which, they've always promised they would, but it was supposed to be part of a peace deal, and sorry, no peace deal, we're going to move it. And it's really like, it's, what can I say? One decision, and, how many people are dead now? How many people, and it was obvious it was going to happen. I'm in Tel Aviv. Gaza is 120 kilometers away, something like that. It's not far at all. Maybe 100 kilometers. If you're watching the news, you know what's going on. It's not good news. That's a massive fracture in society. And there's no evolution. What's happening here in Israel is and always was a beautiful example of how humans don't evolve. You know, it's just continued hardship, continued heartbreak, continued tragedy, continued separation, continued separation, continued separation, continued separation. It's horrible. And, you know, Syria is another horrible example of what's going on. And even in our own little communities, you know, there's just parts where we just have separation. And because of that separation, we don't evolve. We don't evolve. You could say Israel's growing economically. Palestine is getting worse off economically. Certainly in Gaza, it's horrible. But there's no we there. You know, why not everybody evolve together, you know? I think most of us on this Facebook Live would agree with that. But my point is that only if we come together can we begin 90. Okay, Ruth's a good friend of mine from. She used to live here. She's back in France, I believe. She says 90 kilometers. Yeah, it's even closer, which is crazy because when you're in Tel Aviv, you think you're in a big, you know, kind of a European/American city, and very, you know, if you go to the West Bank, it's a 20-minute drive that way. Some parts of it, and it's another world. And there's reasons for the wall, there's reasons for the separation, you know, and there's, sure, whatever. But that's human nature, to separate. That's our lower instincts, you know. Let's preserve and survive our groups. But we don't evolve that way. We don't evolve. Only when we're able to kind of build bridges or take down walls and let ourselves press together in that uncomfortable place can we evolve into a new whole, let's just say, state of being or new way of being as a community. And that pressing of together is highly tense, highly uncomfortable, highly stressful, and the field of conflict. And oh my gosh, you know, that's not a pleasant thing, but it just so happens that you and I, other people watching this call, watching this recording, we're Aikidoka. You know, and if we're not willing to kind of if you and I can't move into the field of conflict, you know, with an open mind, an open heart, you know, standing feet firm on the ground in our center and trusting. If you and I can't do it, who's going to do it? Really, I mean, who's going to do it? You know, if you're as somebody who's walking, and I'm sorry, this is my challenge part of the speech here, but you know, as somebody who's walking a higher path of practice, if we can't do it, there's no hope. So these are the 5 benefits, you know, and the 5th one really leads, you know, takes us out of separation and moves towards more wholeness. Benefit number 1 is challenge. 5 benefits of being part of a practice community. Benefit number 1 is challenge. Benefit number 2 is support. Benefit number 3 is we get to learn from others. Benefit number 4 is we get to help others. And benefit number 5 is that we need each other to evolve.